now with the news that specialist UK officers will intervene to calm down supporters who risk breaching strict morality laws. There are fresh warnings to fans travelling to Qatar for the World Cup. Drinking alcohol outside the fan zone, swearing and public displays of affection are all offences that can lead to arrest in the hardline Islamic country. And in a World Cup exclusive, The Sun splashes, as we've just seen, on how the wives and girlfriends of England's footballers will attempt to stay out of trouble. They are basing themselves on a £1 billion luxury liner, cheekily referring to it as HMS Wags. Well, the floating palace boasts 6 swimming pools, more than 30 bars and cafes with 5-star packages costing up to £6,000. I'm sure they're not all paying for themselves. Well, earlier on, I spoke to the founder of Detained in Dubai, Radha Stirling. She told us what football fans travelling to Qatar can expect.
I mean, certainly we are expecting that Qatar, in having bid to host the World Cup, that they are actually going to essentially turn a blind eye to any behaviour that they see coming from foreign nationals visiting the event. However, we can expect to see that these rules are going to be arbitrarily enforced, and certainly foreign nationals attending this event are going to be put at significant risk of being detained in Doha.
So what advice would you give to them, rather, particularly when it comes to their behaviour, whether that's the behaviour in the football stadiums or in their hotels or out and about? And we know that football fans like a drink. Presumably that's where some of the problems will come.
Yes, certainly I think that visitors to Qatar are going to be seeing people behaving in all sorts of manners, and that includes local Qataris. And they may see certain behaviour going on that is actually illegal in Qatar, and they may think that therefore it's okay for them to behave in the same manner. But the fact is the laws are going to be arbitrarily enforced, and any violation of the law can lead to their lengthy detention in Qatar. So it's very important for people visiting there not just to abide by the letter of the law, but to imagine that they could inadvertently offend someone. And if that person makes a report about them to the police are obliged to follow that up in a very, very serious way. So it is already risky, and people genuinely need to be aware of that risk.
And that brings me neatly onto my next question, actually, Radha, because just last week, a British MP warned that LGBT supporters needed to compromise, in his words, and be respectful of the host nation. What did you make of those comments?
I mean, it's really interesting that the LGBT community even supports a nation that would actually, under the letter of their law, see members of that community flogged or even executed. So to even go there while hotels are telling them not to book in to their hotel, that they will be denied a reservation, that they shouldn't be there, it's really surprising that people think that it's okay to be there. And I think that they assume that if they're acting in a way, in a manner that is not offensive to people, that they won't face issues. But we can see from Dubai, who's had the same rules in the past, that that very same law can be enforced at their whim. And so even following the letter of the law isn't necessarily enough. If a fellow World Cup fan who's staying at the same hotel takes offence to that person and they report them to authorities, they're definitely going to face prosecution.
Well, it's certainly going to be one that we'll all be watching, not just the action on the pitch, but of course, as you were describing, Radha, what will happen to the fans off the pitch. Many, many thanks for joining us tonight on First Edition.
Thank you.
All right, well, picking up on that story, let's go back to our panel and look at some of tomorrow's front pages and back pages. But let's have another look. I just want to get your reaction to this. The Sun front page, HMS Wag set sail. I mean, it's okay for them, isn't it? It's because they've got access to a £1 billion, cruise liner with the 6 swimming pools and whatever else it is, and presumably they can drink to their heart's content on there and not get into any trouble. So it is sort of, I mean, I'm not surprised they're doing this, but also quite interesting in that their husbands and boyfriends aren't allowed onto this liner because they're in this COVID bubble.
Look, we're gonna have weeks and weeks and weeks of what the Wags are up to and can they see the players. But I think I just think it's a farce. I mean, the idea that the World Cup is being held in Qatar, and they've had to change. I mean, it's supposed to be in the summer. They've had to move it to the winter because of the weather. I mean, I was reminded to say alleged earlier on, but our security services reckon hundreds of millions were spent to secure this thing. FIFA is a completely corrupt organisation. It's an absolute farce that this World Cup's in Qatar. The last one was in Russia. Where are they going to go next? China? North Korea? I think it's a scandal. I think that we should be pushing, our football authorities should be pushing for reform of the international game. I mean, look, our first game, England, we're going to be playing Iran. Iran. What are Iran doing in the World Cup? Sport's supposed to be about freedom, bringing people together, celebrating excellence. It's being hosted in a sort of medieval dictatorship, and we're playing another medieval dictatorship in the first game. I think Iran should be kicked out straight away, and their place should be given to Ukraine.
And your Labour colleagues are boycotting.
Former Labour colleagues.
Sorry, apologies. Former, you're independent now. But yes, you were in the Labour MP. Prince William seems to be boycotting, or his diary's busy. You know, an elegant boycott, you could say. But the Conservative government isn't boycotting it, as far as I'm aware, Jake.
Well, as far as I'm aware, they're not. But I suppose there is an element of taking politics out of sport, and it is right that the government, particularly in the British pavilion that has been built there, is represented. But, you know, just to pick up on Ian's point, it is bizarre, isn't it, that the families of the England football team are having to be held offshore on a ship so they can just behave probably in a completely reasonable way. I mean, it's not somewhere I would want to spend my holidays, but, you know, in a completely reasonable way. And I think that does speak to a lot of the challenges that Qatar has had in hosting this World Cup, and also really shows probably why they shouldn't have done it. But on the flip side, there is an opportunity for British fans and the world to show the people of Qatar, you know, how people outside that kingdom live, and to sort of put the world in Qatar, so people in Qatar can say, well, actually, the way we live probably isn't the same as the rest of the world lives. So there is a sort of cultural exchange that will take place, which may be positive for people who live in Qatar.
Sounding a little Pollyanna there, if I may say so.
I thought it was a very good point.
It is a good point, but it sounds perhaps overly optimistic.
Well,
is all I meant.
It was picked up on the lady who was talking about being arrested in Dubai. I think they were saying that people who live in Qatar will see people from outside Qatar come and behave in a different way, and will start to question. She said it was quite a negative thing that people could mimic the behaviour and be punished in a terrible way. But also there is an education piece to say to people, you know, the way you are living isn't the same way as people of the rest of the world.
Let's have a look at some of the back pages. We've got the Times here. We've got the Eye. First of all, let's have a look at that. The Eye is going, World Cup in Qatar shows no respect to LGBT plus people. England forward, and this is Beth Mead, said holding the Men's World Cup in Qatar shows no respect for LGBT plus people due to the intolerant laws. So she's being really quite brave, because a lot of the footballers have not spoken out, and it's understandable why they haven't spoken out. But let's also look at the Times, which is a fairly extraordinary story. Fans paid to be spies at World Cup. Qatar will also reward them for singing on demand, because